because a lot of people thought it was psycho. They thought it was crazy.
Right, yeah.
Insane for like, who you're dating somebody that's sentenced 25 years in prison. He's going to get out when he's 40?
Yeah.
Like, they thought I was insane. So I had really good support, and I literally had to learn how to like block out, completely ignore all of the awful things people were saying. You're dating a child molester, a baby effer, like the nastiest things that, get emotional. For like the first year when Greg was in prison, I knew Jonathan did it. There was evidence that hadn't been brought forward of child pornography on his phone, on his computer, him admitting it at parties. But I had to still pretend. The PI wanted me to pretend to still be his friend because he was my best friend too at the time. Got a lot of evidence of nasty stuff that didn't even have to do with the children. It was other like illegal stuff. Jonathan getting up, grabbing a blanket, putting it over us, and then like sliding his hand up my leg and saying like, I'm never gonna leave you. And everything in that moment, like, room went red, blackout, so upset. And Shama's sitting right there too, so she's like okay with this. Our first night, like making breakfast in the morning, like just being in each other's presence again, it was honestly felt like a dream. It didn't feel real, that whole
Do you know what it felt like to me? It felt like if one of us later on in life, if one of us passed before each other and we finally reunited again in heaven, that's what it felt like.
Welcome back to the Get Back Podcast. This episode is sponsored by Just Meats. I'm Zeke Pike, and I'm here with my co-host, Greg Kelley.
And today we have a special guest. Here in this podcast, we've had the privilege of having a tremendous amount of phenomenal stories, great people, different walks of life, inspirational to business, to a man with no legs, one arm and a finger, and many more to come. But this one specifically we have on this podcast is one that's near and dear to my heart. She has my heart. I have the privilege of sharing life with her. I'm a half a man without her, and I'm a full man with her. I met her when she was just a girl, and I was just a little teenage boy. And we've grown so much in the most unconventional way of love. And I just love her so much, and I'm so happy that she agreed because she is a little camera shy, but she's a woman that steps out of her comfort zone, and that's why I love her so much as well. And so today we have Gaebri Kelley on the Get Back Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Thanks for coming. The first female of the podcast.
That's the first female podcast.
And it's so fitting. We were just talking. I was like, we really want to get some good, strong female stories on here and testimonies on here because we do have, female followers. And again, there's no more fitting guest to have on as the first female than you, Gaebri Kelley. So we're excited. I'm excited to hear your perspective. I think our audience, I'm sure they're super eager to hear your side of the story and, just how your experience of loving Greg through, the storms that you guys had to learn to weather together at a young age. And so, I want to let Greg kind of, lead and walk Gaebri, through. But Gaebri, I'm excited to hear your journey and where you're at now and, just the love and the bonds that were created.
There's so many angles we could take this because I think the story we want to keep here in this podcast is Gaebri's get back when it comes from standing up and being next to me, the guy at the age of 18, 19 years old whose life got completely derailed. And when it comes to womanhood, the epitome of what it means to stand by your man, to stand up for what you believe in, the truth, the love you have for somebody, when the whole world's painting him to be a monster, because that's what they did, right? And so I don't think you've had the opportunity to explain your story, your POV of the Greg Kelley case. Because as much as of a nightmare I was going through, you were also going through it with me as whenever you decided to stay with me and us to continue to navigate that storm together. So we're going to let the floor be yours, and we want you to tell your story, and we would love to hear who you are, where you came from, your upbringing. Just kind of lay that down for us.
Yeah. So we met when we were babies, pretty much. It was Running Rushing Middle School. I remember I wasn't supposed to go to that middle school, and we met in a math class. I feel like we definitely started as like had mutual friends, and I remember you copying off my math homework all the time, and
I was really dyslexic.
That's how it started.
yeah, that's really how it started. He was always copying off me. But we were good friends, and I was more into like the skater boys. Greg was like this macho, strong, like all the girls wanted to date him, and I was quiet. I didn't really have like many friends in middle school. But we started hanging out and started hanging out outside of school. And I remember us heading to Slitterbond, and that's like a water park here in Texas. And again, we're just like with a friend group, no interest in Greg at all, like just totally out of my league, I thought. And
I was out of your league?
Yes.
No, you were out of my league.
I mean, at that time, no, I was totally into the skater boys.
I was scared to talk to you.
I don't know. He was the macho man, the football player, the track star, all the things. And
Greg's getting red.
yeah. And I remember going to Slitterbond, and we were going in the whirlpool, or what's called the wave pool.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I remember him tackling me and me coming up from the water. And like from that point, I was like, I think I have a crush on this guy, because he like tackled me, and I remember feeling like so safe in his arms. And that's literally back in 2010 or something like that is when it all started. And I mean, it was like just young love. It was like a crush. It was cute. I feel like that's where it all began. And I remember like having a huge crush on you. And I mean, it was never like right then and there we were in love. It wasn't that. It's really started as a friendship and grew from there. And I think something that was literally since middle school all the way through where we are now is I was so passionate about dance and passionate about what my career, and he was so focused on football and so focused on his career, and that's like what drew us to each other.
Complemented each other.
Yeah, it made us attracted to each other, really. And that's kind of like the base of our relationship. And it really was a friendship thing and cute young love, cute crush. And who would have ever thought in a million years we'd be where we are now? Like, it's just crazy to think about. It's really, really, really wild to think about.
It's wild. Yeah, it's so crazy to think about now, because it's been 8/2/10's always been our day, right? It's like August 2nd, 2010. That was the day where I mustered up the courage to ask you to be my girlfriend. Yeah. And just to think that it's been 14 years.
Almost 14 years. That's
crazy.
Insane.
Since we've started dating, and of course we got married in 2020, and so, but I would love to talk about your upbringing, because you as a woman, it's totally different, so unique. You're honestly, there's no other woman in the world just like you as far as your loyalty. I have failed to see anybody that compares to my wife as somebody who's so passionate about loving somebody. And I say that as your husband because I'm biased, but just how you hold me accountable to like things that I put off doing because I'm not organized, and you are, and you compliment me in that in every way. And I thank God even every day when I get convicted that I need to be more organized, that I've got a woman who puts that flame under my butt, to as well as just having me go and be everything I need to be and want to be and what God wants me to be. I wanted to kind of just shed light on why you are the way you are. And I think a lot of that being your husband and getting to know your parents. Yeah. A lot of people say I've got a father-in-law and a mother-in-law. I call them father and mother in loves for me because they are like my parents. I want to talk about them and just kind of growing up with them, as well as your siblings, the passions you had growing up, and ultimately what made you and molded who you are today. And we're going to get into all that and who you are today, but just your upbringing. Yeah.
I mean, my family is incredible. And I think through all of like the stuff that you went through, I really saw that. But I mean, before that, my mom dance team director of Lander High School, very well known in the community, and incredible morals, hardest working woman. I think that I know still to this day. And she always provided for us. She was always working super hard, but made us feel loved. And I loved my mom's relationship with my dad. It was so special. Strong marriage. My dad was a leadership coach in Leander, and I saw him change lives every single day in his leadership class, and he had such a big effect on everybody around him. I know, like, you just met him, and Jacob just met him, and he's such a genuinely kind, servant-hearted dad, and I look up to him in so many ways, and I think they both did a really good job of raising me and my sisters to work hard. They supported us in every single aspect of life, whether we wanted to be a dancer or not. And they instilled really incredible morals in us. And yeah, it's I'm honestly a reflection of who they are.
Yeah.
100%.
That's what I was telling Greg today in the car, is like, the only way that you were able, and I want to get into it because I'm anxious to hear like your side of it, but the only way that you were able to love Greg through the situation he went through was because you saw that in front of you, right? Like, and you saw how your mom and dad loved each other, and like, you were able, if you don't have that, like, there's no way that a girl your age is even capable of staying. I mean, 99.9% they're gonna run, or their parents are gonna tell them like, you got to get far away from this guy.
Yeah.
Not like, what can we do to help you and save you, right? So I'm curious, like, let's go into high school, right? And like when all this kind of goes down, because there's a lot that I'm sure we're going to get into, but let's talk about the day that like all this, like the call comes in, right? Where you find out like that you're being accused of whatever. Walk me through, like, you guys, you know, it's your story, so I'm anxious to hear it, but I'm curious because like you get told like, hey, by the way, like, this boyfriend that you love, right? When you're young, you're still young, right? Like,
babies, yeah.
He's being accused of what he's being accused of. Like, what is your first thoughts? What do you do?
You remember that call?
I remember the call. Yeah, I was in
LA.
Los Angeles, so he didn't even tell me in person. He called me.
So you were older than him?
No. I'm sorry. I'm in LA in the summer. Like,
okay.
Training.
Okay.
So no, we're in the same grade. But no, yeah, he called me, and my dad already knew because the first person he went to was my dad, which had already made me fall probably more in love with you.
Yeah.
But I remember him telling me it, and honestly, like, I was a child, so I did not understand at all the magnitude. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, he's been accused of this. We'll get to the bottom of it. You'll be back. It's our senior year. We're going to have our incredible senior year together, and it's all going to be cleared. I do remember like in the grocery store, like collapsing and crying and not being able to process anything that was being told to me. And I don't think it ever clicked to me the magnitude of what was happening until trial, honestly. I always thought they would clear it and he'd be back in school, back on the football team. We'd have our senior prom. We'd have all those incredible experiences. But I was so wrong about all that.
We were so naive to the justice system.
Yeah, we didn't know anything.
We thought we trust the police. We trust
your attorney that we're paying.
Yeah, we trust the attorney that we were paying, that my family sacrificed so much to afford. We trust that everything's going to come out.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and honestly, like, I think the goal for me, I was like, okay, for us, I was like, let's get it cleared by the end of summer, so when school starts, we can just, you know, I can go in and we can tell the truth and celebrate. And it was, the first day of school was hard.
Yeah.
Without him there.
Was there ever like fully honest, like, was there ever a time where you were like, what if he's guilty?
No.
Never.
I get that question all the time.
Right.
No, not at all.
Wow.
Not at all. I wondered if it actually happened. Like, at first I didn't know who did it. And I always wondered if it actually happened.
Because you guys probably thought like, this kid's just making this up for a while.
At
Like,
first.
did you ever? Yeah.
But then, no. Once we got to the
Right.
who actually did it.
So there was never. Wow.
I knew him. I mean, I knew you. Yeah, I knew.
That gave me so much relief. Because that ultimately, bro, that was the biggest thing I was scared of is, family walking away from me, like friends walking away from me. But like, this is somebody who I'm trying to share my heart with.
Yeah.
If she walks away from me, it's just, I really, people ask me all the time, like, why didn't you just off yourself while going through all that? And I'm like, you don't think there's times where I felt like I just didn't want to wake up? But if I knew that I didn't have somebody else that was just mending my heart in the process after heartache after heartache after heartache that I can go to still feel this type of love.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how people can navigate in this world like that, you know? Yeah.
And I think something too special about your guys' relationship as being young, something that I admire is like your guys' ability to like commit to just one another and have your guys' boundaries with like where you stand morally in your love relationship in terms of you guys making decisions to save yourself until marriage or be like at a young age, like, dude, that's a serious commitment. High school kids, like, come on, like that's not something that's really talked about anymore. Right. And so that had to like definitely strengthen your bond, like, especially as a woman. I feel like to have a man more so be like committing to that is like, wow, like it's coming from a family of faith, right? Like,
yeah,
because my mom and dad, they were only together like you guys. They met in middle school. They were married. Like they didn't have sex until they were married. Like, and I always kind of like envied that, right? You know, like, dang, like that would have been really nice. But like that, there's something about that has to like really strengthen your connection at a young age that like most girls don't get that. Most girls like, you know, and even guys, but like they probably go through some really like crazy relationships just being young and dumb. And like,
for sure.
I'm just curious, is like, how was that playing a factor in just like your guys' strength being young and your faith, obviously? I mean, you were, you know, like your it was probably something that you were like always really exposed to.
My dad preached about it in his leadership class, literally.
Yeah.
And
Greg probably knew he didn't really have an option, but
dude, look, this podcast is all about vulnerability, and we want to talk about like, it's not to say though, bro, like we had the urges, like we're normal. I mean, we're all it is this: God challenges us to save this intimate thing that the scripture talks about. It's tying of souls. It's soul tying, right? So when a man engages in a sexual act, allowing the word intimacy is into me, you see, you know?
Yeah.
And so whenever you physically undergo the action of sex, you're opening up an intimacy, right? A flesh to flesh, soul to soul situation. And that's why the scripture says like, just save it. Because there's this world when you do it and you act in just perfect love, right? This unconditional love, the moment that those two things collide, there's going to be a bond that nothing can break. Nothing can break. But if you do it backwards, you shatter this beautiful thing I have for you that's waiting. And that's how I look at it. And as a kid, I mean, as a teenage boy, like, you know, straight up, I mean, you know how we operate. I mean, it doesn't take much to see something, and next thing you know, you're just down a really bad rabbit hole, right? And so,
well, and before we started dating, you like, I feel like that was not who you were at all. Like, we definitely grew up together, matured, and like it was challenging. It was really challenging.
Yeah. I think that's like really cool, especially with what you do, right? And you're around young girls all the time. Like, dude, there's no better leader than to be able to say that. Like, honestly, say that. Like, and it's probably the greatest decision you've ever made, right? Like,
yeah.
A lot of girls need to hear that. The young girls need to hear that because, like, I have a daughter. You guys are about to have a daughter. Like, I'm scared to death.
For real, dude.
Well, that physical touch was completely taken away from us when he was in.
So that's kind of where I was.
Really, you don't have an option.
That's kind of where I was going with it. Was like, okay, so let's slow down a little bit because, like, I want to talk about trial because that's kind of like, you know, like, okay, you get to trial now and you're like, oh crap, this is real. Like, you get your plea deal. What happens from there? Because you see like, you know, in the documentary, you see you in court and you see, you know, you're just emotional and like there's a lot of emotions that are going through your head. You have the opportunity to have this plea deal, right? Like, what happened from there? Like, did you guys have conversation? You know, like I'm curious. Like, take me to that time and like.
Do you remember
trial.
what you told me? Do you remember what you told me when I called you about it? I called you about it. The DA.
You were thinking about it.
The DA came up to me right before trial and said, "We'll offer you 5 years probation, or you can go into that courtroom and have a chance of 25 to life."
Mm-hmm.
And the last person that I needed to hear his voice before I make this decision of my life to go up to everybody that I love, everybody that supports me, that believes in me. It's different when somebody believes in you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so different when you have so many people believing in you. You go up there and you say something you didn't do, or you stand and fight. And you're the last person I called. And I said, "Gabe, I need advice. What do I do? I don't know what to do. I don't want to make any bad decisions." You remember what you told me?
To not take it.
Not take it.
Stand by the truth.
You said stand by the truth and let's fight.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
That's I don't know if you know the magnitude of how that's not normal for a woman of your age who is standing by a man who's being painted a monster.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't handle it sometimes. I just knew that I could pick up this phone and call this girl that would just get my head back on track.
Wow.
And that's just not normal. And I don't know if you know the magnitude of it and how special you are, and all of that. And so, yeah, you know, like I don't want to get ahead of myself or ourselves, but I want to know, like, after I was convicted and I got sentenced to prison for 25 years and everything was just torn from me. My identity was torn from me. And I mean, I was thinking about you the whole time, and we had a bunch of letters, right? We wrote each other a lot.
Yeah.
And
thousands.
And we recently, several months ago, looked back on those letters, and I absolutely loved just reminiscing on just how just childish we were, because we were kids writing each other.
Babies.
We were playing 21 questions,
like every day,
making sure that we stayed in each other's life and that our interests still aligned with each other.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't miss a beat as she was out in LA, and we'll talk about that too. But this all plays into whenever you went out to LA and you had to navigate this world of being attached to somebody who was just painted a monster.
Yeah.
And in the process of all that, I remember actually writing you saying, like, it's okay. You can go. Like, nobody would blame you. I wouldn't blame you on living your life. This is not happening to you. You know, this is happening to me. I have to go through this. And you throw me back. I was like, what? You know, like, what are you even talking about? No, like, that to me just gave me that just filled my soul up just to keep going.
Yeah.
And, my question to you is, when somebody's being painted a monster and everybody's telling you, you have every right to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody would blame you. Nobody would. It's okay. You don't have to endure that. That's not happening to you. But now everyone praises you for staying.
Yeah.
Everybody honors you for staying. And you're so humble about it. You're just like, it was a no-brainer. You're so humble.
It really was, though. Like, it really was a no-brainer. Like, I knew the truth. I knew you're my person. And I knew I was going to stick by your side.
So let me ask you, because you guys are sitting at court, right? You say no, you go back into court, right? And again, the whole time, it's funny because you think about being that young. Like, you probably were very naive to, like, not really understanding the true, like, magnitude
we're
and
literally
what
planning to
the
go to
actual
Six Flags the
outcome.
next day. Like, we're not
could be.
thinking he's being convicted at all.
So all of a sudden they're like, Greg Kelley, guilty.
Yeah.
And then was sentencing the same day, or did you have to go back?
Next morning.
So next morning is sentencing, and at this point, like, you get sentenced to 25,
which is the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's real.
Yeah.
real.
Like now it's real. Like now there's like you watch the cuff slap on and that door close in the courtroom, and that was it. Like what not like I want to know about that moment, because that's when everything for both of you guys, like, holy, this is real. Like, but even you, I mean, you know, I couldn't even process in my mind when the judge told me I had 364 days.
Yeah.
I couldn't even process how long that was about to be. 25 years. And you were like, I'm gonna ride. Like, I'm just take me there. Cause it's like, that's just a special.
Yeah. I think when they found him guilty and like actually said those words out loud, everything around me went black. I don't even know what happened after that, because literally I couldn't hear anymore. And your body just goes into complete shock, because that was not on the radar at all whatsoever. And I went through a very deep, dark depression, black hole for years, probably. And I didn't realize, like, they just take you that you don't have another day to like have a night together or anything. They just literally put handcuffs on him and took him away.
I went behind a door and I was gone.
I think we got to kiss, maybe.
The courtroom right next door, there was actually this picture that somebody took between the glass door, like the little glass in a door, and it was just her and I just molded together, and we didn't want to let each other go. And we're broken.
Yeah. And I didn't have any words. I don't even think I gave you any like words of encouragement or anything. I was just completely broken. And no one around me knew what to say to me. Like, they didn't know how do you tell someone like it's gonna be okay? Like, it was, and I had people that I think God put in my life at a young age to stick by my side through all this. They're still by our sides to this day and fought for us. And I was very lucky to have those girls out in the real world.
Sure.
Because a lot of people thought it was psycho. They thought it was crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Insane for like, who you're dating somebody that's sentenced 25 years in prison. He's going to get out when he's 40.
Yeah.
Like, they thought I was insane. So I had really good support, and I literally had to learn how to like block out, completely ignore all of the awful things people were saying.
So like, when you guys first went in there, right? Like, how long was it before like Jake Bryden got in the picture? Because must have been a period where both of you were like, there's no end to the tunnel right now. I'm sorry, but there's not. Like, there's 25 years. Like, and I'm sorry, if I was you, in the back of my mind, I would have been like, you need to go live your life. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, like, but at some point,
I told him too, I was like, I'm not going to LA. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to fight for you every single day. And you were like, no, you're going to go after your dreams and you're going to LA and you don't have a choice. And I really like that. I'm so glad you did that, because I needed to hear that from him, because I would not have gone.
Yeah, that's good.
If you didn't tell me to.
Yeah, no, I think through like bro, when this happens to you, when like your life gets derailed and a storm's coming, and I feel like when I was convicted, there was that storm that I could see across the horizon, that it's coming no matter what, and I have to prepare for it. And I've explained in previous episodes of how I've prepared for that storm, but one thing I didn't want, and what you always do, is you take when a storm's coming and a tornado's coming, the first people you should think about is your loved ones and the safety and the shelter of them. And so whenever I was thinking about Gaebri going out to LA, I knew how important her image would be, right? To be able to go and pursue her dreams of being a backup dancer, working and excelling in the commercial dance industry, to making connections, to pursuing her dreams, just to advance in her education in dance, right? As well as being an NFL cheerleader. And these are all achievements that she's got to do.
Right.
And what's so wild too is when you went out to LA and when I was in prison and you decided to stick by my side, stand by your man type of stance, there was so much hate that was said about you too. Like there was like a website that was created.
There's a lot of stuff. Yeah. I mean, ever since you got accused at high school, I was like, there's things said about me. Like, you're dating a child molester, a baby effer, like the nastiest things that.
People were already jealous of you because you're absolutely stunning. You're beautiful. you're super athletic. You have a heart of gold. You put everyone else before you. If somebody's in the corner and left out, you're going to go check on them. You're going to go and say, hey, come join us over here. You're the type of person that would sit at the cafeteria with somebody that's eating alone. I mean, you're the type of person that would make sure that they felt valued. And when you're out in LA, I think that you maybe felt a little bit of friends that you thought you were your friends that was like, oh my gosh, that hurt because I just want to be nothing but open and vulnerable to you. I want to tell you what's going on in my life. And then you found some like friends that were your bridesmaid in your wedding. Yeah. And I think, but LA wasn't what you thought it would be. Mm-mm. As you went out there. How was your experience in LA going through all of this?
Yeah. I mean, going out to Los Angeles, I auditioned for a scholarship program where they picked 10 boys, 10 girls. And like even during my little audition, I wore a little ribbon that like represented the fight for GK. And he was always part of me, like through everything. And I was very open about it. It was all over my Instagram. I posted about it. It was never a secret. But I think the hardest thing was like one of my dreams was to be an NFL cheerleader. That was like, if I could do anything, it was to become an NFL cheerleader. At first, I was like, I want to be a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, but Los Angeles, the Chargers moved there. And I was like, perfect opportunity. Right around this time, your more evidence for his case to be reopened was coming out. And, you know, I'm supporting it. I'm getting excited. I'm like, everything's happening great. I make the NFL cheerleading team for the Chargers. My first year, life is made. And I remember my coach pulling me aside and saying to me, I need you to like take down everything about Greg Kelley, your boyfriend. And I was crushed because this is like my childhood dream that I finally got. Right. And then the person I love has to be like erased from my life. Right. And it's like, obviously you mean way more than this whole career dance thing. And, you know, they talked about like changing my name, not letting me go on appearances. And it just felt wrong. Like the whole thing felt wrong. And, I knew that I could only do this for 1 year because I'm not giving up what we have for a career or for a dream. That's not what I'm doing. So that was heartbreaking because it was my childhood dream since I was like 7 years old. I wanted to be an NFL cheerleader, and the fact that they didn't support a woman that's standing by innocence and truth is just wild. It was heartbreaking. It was wild to me.
What's up, guys? We just wanted to take a quick moment to thank our main sponsor for today's episode, Just Meats. We've been testing out the Just Meats products for the last few weeks, and we absolutely love them. A few of my personal favorites are the Hawaiian, teriyaki beef and chicken, and the braised beef as well. Just Meats is a meal prep service fueled purely by grass-fed, grass-finished meats. Every Just Meats product comes with a pound of meat prepped and ready to go. Each Just Meats products comes with 4 servings. Every serving is 30 grams of protein or more. The ingredients are extremely clean and allergy-friendly. And Just Meats offers a variety of chicken, pork, and beef products and has over 15 different flavor options to choose from. And not to mention, they come out with a subscriber-exclusive flavor each month, and the raspberry barbecue chicken was incredible. You can create a one-time order to try out the Just Meats products, or you can sign up now for a subscription to have great quality protein delivered to your doorstep each month. So guys, use code GETBACK to get $25 off your order. And first-time subscribers get 20% off their order and an additional $25 when they use code GETBACK at checkout. Subscribers continue to get 10% off their order each month. And guys, subscribers have exclusive access to specialty meat flavors that change monthly. You don't want to miss this. So check out Just Meats products at justmeats.com and make sure you use code GETBACK. Now back to the episode.
How I see that, that's just another instance of you standing for the truth. And this another instance of you showing your heart to the world. Because again, nobody would blame you if you took those posts out. Nobody would blame you if you maybe change your name a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and everyone was saying to do it. Like all the girls, except one, but like all the girls and stuff were like, just follow the rules, delete everything. And like, then you get to have your dream and you can secretly also be with your guy. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Nobody would blame you. And what's so crazy about the way of the world is the people that make a true impact, the people that are truly inspirational, the people that other people look up to, and the people that get positions like you, who are a leader of one of the best hip hop companies in the world, in the nation. I mean, you guys just captivate judges and you captivate stages and you do so much great things with y'all's craft. I think the world and people are truly influenced. I think of it as the example that the 4-minute mile for so long was the impossible record to break until one person came in, trained so freaking hard, stood up and was so focused on getting that 4-minute, the moment it broke, within a year later, 13 other people broke it. It's because that one person defied the odds where, hey, if you give up, it's impossible, nobody would blame you. It's impossible to go and chase your dreams and get the heights of being an NFL cheerleader and to go out to LA, make wonderful friends, sisters now that you have. It's impossible to do all that while you stand by somebody and fight for the truth. So especially somebody who has painted one of the most disgusting, scum of the barrel, frowned upon things you could ever do, right? But standing by them, knowing and having faith and hoping that at the end of all this, I'm going to stand for the truth. And I feel like you are who you are right now, and you've inspired the way that you have because you did that. And I'm just blessed for you to be my wife. And it's just, having a podcast and having an episode like that just reminds me of it. And I'm just so honored, and I love that.
You're a good husband, GK.
Dude,
So I'm
man.
curious. I'm curious because let's talk about you said the evidence was getting ready to come back out, right?
Yeah.
So now there's some serious hope, right? Now, you guys are talking about, and obviously Jake is super involved. Keith Hampton's now involved, and your team's really clicking. I want to know about when you get to the end, right? And you see the clip of the door opening and you guys jumping in each other's arms.
Oh man.
Whether that was that first hug or not, whatever, but that was never supposed to happen, right? So then all of a sudden it happens. Take me there, because that's just crazy to me. I don't know. It's just
That was wild. I mean,
Yeah.
physical touch again was taken away from us for so
right.
long. It was kind of weird being together for physically again, being able to hug and stuff. But I feel like from our letters, I know we kind of touched on this, but I truly fell in love with Greg when he was in prison.
Wow.
We connected on a deeper level, emotional level than we ever have through our letters and through our phone calls. And I when he was first in there, I remember he just transformed and became on fire for God. And I was I knew who God was, but I didn't have a relationship with him. And he was nonstop.
I gave her a little bit too much sometimes.
Jesus. And I'm literally so do you want to talk about something else? About my day or something? And he just kept pushing at me, and not in a bad way. It was completely out of just he was so excited to know who God is and have a relationship with him. But I don't know exactly what it was, but I remember just finally listening to you and giving in and diving in. And that was the best decision, because all my anxiety, I struggled with the eating disorder.
Yeah.
All of my just fears and stuff I felt such at peace. And he was at peace a lot in prison, way more than I was. And he was the one going through it all. But I fell deeply in love with him while he was in prison. So in so many ways, I'm grateful for that experience. I would never wish it upon anybody, but that was such a beautiful chapter of our relationship. It really was.
Yeah. I always touch on this. I think the only way that you could be grateful to go through a tragedy like that is whenever you shift that looking through the lens of pain to the lens of purpose.
Yeah.
And it's we're now operating in the lens of purpose. We choose to believe that what God brought us through, like there's so many stories and examples in scripture where there's so many characters that have been tested of their faith, right? There's so many stories where Job was tested of his faith, right? Joseph tested, Paul tested. It's just, I feel like we're constantly being molded and fortified into being more of who he wants us to be. And I think when we look at our journey, we look at what faith has brought us out of, and that now we have a faith-driven life. So every time that somebody says like, dude, how'd you do it? Like, aren't you mad? Or don't you want to go and I remember one comment that I read. I thought it was so interesting and it captivated me because he's like, if I got out of prison, wrongfully convicted, now exonerated, somebody said, why aren't you back in prison to do whatever you need to do to the people that put you in there? And I just thought about that. I was like, wow, nobody would blame me.
Yeah.
Nobody would blame me. If everybody would have pity on me, actually. But we live in a world now where I feel like true change and true inspiration, to have people wake up and appreciate freedom and appreciate love. We talked about letters, right? I want to touch on this because I want to give our audience something. If I could give anything of our marriage and our relationship, is the importance of truly, truly checking in and staying connected with one another on an internal level instead of a physical level. Because I think we can get so wrapped up in a world full of I got to have sex with them to see if I'm sexually compatible before I marry them. Honestly, that's super important, which it is. I mean, sexual intimacy, it is. But if you ultimately just look through that lens, all of the other things that now we honor when we hear somebody who's been together for 50 years, we clap for them. We say, wow, how did you do it?
Yeah.
And you know what most of them say? Just stay communicated. Just communicate with each other. Stay connected. Ask each other questions. Sit down. How was your day? You want to go on a date? You want to go to the movies? I always ask her, let's go to the movies, because I think she knew how important movies were.
Me and Dre go to the movies all the time. It's like a freaking
every time I text you, you're always like,
honestly,
movies.
I get so disappointed because there's never any freaking good movies
I
that
know,
come
they
out.
need to come about it.
It's there's just never good. I get so disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm there too, brother.
I want to ask you something, and you shared about it, and I think it's. I know we're kind of jumping back and forth, but I think it's okay. And I think if you're okay sharing about it, you talked about just the struggle with having an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And my sister almost died.
Yeah.
She was bad, really, really, really bad off. And it's real. It's real. It's real. And I think a lot of young girls struggle with it, right?
Yeah.
And again, you're in the dance community, and I'd imagine it's even more prevalent just because image and body and all that is, so it was a really scary period for me, being young and my sister was in high school, right? She was bad, bulimic, really bad, really, really bad. And she had to go to treatment for a while. And so I'm curious where you're at with that now, and your kind of your struggle and your experience with it, because it a lot of girls are struggling with it right now.
Yeah. That started when he got accused. And as a dancer, I mean, you're standing in front of a mirror 99% of the day. And I think I'm still kind of a control freak in so many ways, but that was something I could control. I could control my calorie intake. I could control how much I was working out. And this situation I couldn't control. So I became obsessed with working out, counting my calories, looking a certain way. And I mean, a comfortable weight for me is 115, 120. And I was 95 pounds, bone.
Yeah.
I would bruise so easily. And there were times where I never threw up, but I would binge eat like crazy.
Yeah.
And it went on all the way through when I was out in Los Angeles. I think it got worse when I was in Los Angeles because you were actually in prison, and I couldn't control. It was out of my control, and that's the one thing in my life that I felt like I could control is my body. And no one really said anything to me when they saw me lose a lot of weight, because I think they were just like scared to push me too far. Or but I remember going to massage, and the lady was like massaging me, and afterwards she was like, told me straight up, like, they're like, you have an eating disorder, and if you do not fix this, you're going to die, or something bad is going to happen to you. Like, your body's eating itself.
Sure.
My body is literally eating itself. In dance class, I would start I'd be at the bar and like forget combinations, because your brain starts to like, you get foggy. And it was at least like a 2 to 3 year long honest struggle, and it didn't get better until I started posting and talking about it. You have to talk about it. And when I became a dance teacher and seeing these girls look in the mirror and like try to suck in their belly, or like pull their shorts up, or like, I look fat and stuff like that, like, it crushed me, because I was like, I've been in your shoes, and they're not fat at all. Like, it's just crazy, because you start to see things that aren't even true. And I'm in a spot now where I can have impact on those girls and help them, because I see it all the time in the dance community, I'd imagine, and just women in general. And
I think it just goes with like just everything, social media and just everything that's seen nowadays. Like, it just, I mean, even as a guy, I can be super self-conscious.
Absolutely,
about how I look, and nowadays, just it's a scary. And I think you said it, and you hit the nail right on the head. You got to talk about it. You have to find somebody that you can trust and talk about it. And that's anything that you're really struggling with, until you're willing to just be like, hey, this is what I was going through. I need help. Like, that's really the only time you can really recover or start to recover.
And then people around you are like, I noticed. I shouldn't say anything. I'm like, why?
Yeah,
you need to say something. Right. Like, you have to say something. But it didn't get better until I started talking about it.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, because I know, like I said, I think that's important for a lot of your girls to hear, but I think just girls and women in general, I think is important for them to hear that, because I think that's the answer, is you got to talk about it, and you got to be willing to just like sometimes ask for help.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's so true. I mean, especially like now with your pregnancy, because of course
I was gonna ask that.
We're gonna talk about that.
I'm pregnant.
No, because I sometimes I struggle with that too, because I know that was one of the biggest things she struggled with, and I didn't know that like whenever you're pregnant, sometimes you lose your appetite. So like I have to sometimes step back and be like, okay, it's not, because it does scare me too. Because when I was going through prison, and I saw her kind of getting skinnier, and I saw like her shoulder bones like happening, and I was just like, oh man, I can't be out here to help her, and I mean, but those days are gone, and but I want to just change up speeds here, and we talk about the day that I got exonerated, right? We're in New York. She was up there. I remember that when Gaebri
so you guys were out for a little bit, right, Greg? Just so I understand. Like,
correct. Yeah.
You were spending time together.
Let's get that straight. So
there was still a fear that you could have had to go back or something.
That was a dark cloud.
He thought about it, but I did not let that get into my head. Like, nope, it's not going back.
That was something, man, I struggle with so much, man. Like, and talk about it. I didn't know any of that. And so, man, it was just so much stress over me, because it wasn't necessarily like, I already know what prison feels like, right? It's a terrible place. I mean, it's a depressing place. It's a place full of violence and racism and death and just so much like immoral stuff happening left and right. And so it's a place where you're always just uncomfortable. And maybe because I've developed a little bit of grit and a little bit of, enjoying suffering and enjoying painful situations, because I know what's going to come of it, right? But it's a place that you're always on the edge of your seat, because you don't know what's about to pop off. So when I got out in 2017, we had that innocence hearing where we brought forth all of the evidence that we collected post-trial. I spent 3.5 years in prison.
All the private investigators of everything.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Actually, that's a good point you said, because this is the type of woman she is too. She's a go-getter. And whenever she gets, when something is threatening her family or her man or anything she loves, she's going to go straight up Super Saiyan mode on doing whatever it needs to get done. So she was very close with my appeal attorney, Keith Hampton, And Keith was like, hey, we might need to do a little PI work here, right? In Greg's case. And Gabri's like, PI, what's that? And he's like, private investigating. He's like, oh, I love to snoop. So Gabri's like, I love to snoop. What do I need to do? Right, blah, blah, blah. So yeah,
I mean, I
talk
don't
about
even
that.
know if you knew everything was like this isn't in the documentary, but pretty much every time I'd come home from Texas, I would get like a microphone put on me or a button that was a camera. And let's rewind real quick. Greg has dealt very well with forgiveness, and I have, for the most part. I just think I'm still struggling with Jonathan.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Get emotional. For like the first year when Greg was in prison, I knew Jonathan did it. There's evidence that hadn't been brought forward of child pornography on his phone, on his computer, him admitting it at parties. But I had to still pretend. The PI wanted me to pretend to still be his friend because he was my best friend too at the time. And to pretend to be his friend to get evidence out of him. And so I had to see him every time I came home. I had to see the guy every single time when I came home that actually should have been in prison. And that destroyed me. I didn't like talking about it with him at all. But I remember I did it every single time I came home, got a lot of evidence of nasty stuff that didn't even have to do with the children. It was other like illegal stuff. But I'll never forget when this lasted for about a year, and I was at Shama's house, which is the daycare. And Shama's sitting on the couch. I'm sitting here. And Jonathan's sitting here. And I'm telling him about Greg and how he's innocent and pouring my heart out. And I could tell they're not really listening at all. And Jonathan getting up, grabbing a blanket, putting it over us, and then like sliding his hand up my leg and saying like, I'm never going to leave you. And everything in that moment, like room went red, blackout, so upset. And Shama's sitting right there too. So she's like, okay with this. And I had not seen him since that day because I could not be in a room with him anymore. I think from there on, that's when I like posted a picture of Greg and Jonathan side by side and just went public with everything. And I think I went a different route because I was like, I can't do this private investigator stuff anymore. We got to go to the media with it.
Yeah.
And bring out the truth. And I'm so glad we did because I feel like that helped like bring things forward. And other people started coming forward, which I wish I would have done. I have a hard time forgiving myself for not coming forward earlier to the media because I was just doing the private investigator work. Because so many other girls, like you see in the documentary, were literally molested by him. And who knows, like if I would have said something earlier, I blame myself sometimes because I'm like, if I would have said something earlier, would they have not been affected? And would they have got to the bottom of it faster? So that still eats at me. And I have a hard time forgiving him. I don't know how to forgive him. But I admire Greg because he has completely forgiven everybody, or at least it seems like it.
No, I struggle with it, but I look at it, I give a plea out to God that the only thing I pray for them is that they would undoubtedly, full-heartedly meet our Creator.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, if you're in the wrong, you'll be convicted. And if you're in the right, you'll have peace. And for me, while I was trying to go out there and fight for my life, the best way that I possibly could, and I think the best way I possibly could because my voice wasn't enough. We have a criminal justice system where I truly believe you are looked at, and this is why we have the Vindication Foundation, is that we want to go out there and educate and challenge the status quo, this new thing that has been out there that you're guilty until proven innocent. Because ultimately our Constitution lays it out that you're innocent until proven guilty. Mm-hmm. And for me, in my case, it didn't matter how much I said that I'm innocent. I was still being painted to be guilty because as a prosecutor, you look at the prosecutors is protecting the victims, right? But ultimately I'm a victim here. but I'm being paid a monster, and the defense attorney is ultimately being paid to defend the guilty, right? And getting the best deal possible. So that's kind of how we've painted our system to be. And, you know, going through all that with Gaebri and doing what she was doing, it absolutely killed me, man, because I knew that I had to be strong for my family, but I was also being strong for myself, because I knew that if I didn't, the ultimate thing that I'm delivered from, man, a lot of people are like, why do you always preach forgiveness and why do you always preach deliverance? It's because I've been delivered from unforgiveness and hate. I'm talking about rage, absolute rage, where I want to get out and I want to hurt people.
Yeah.
I've had thoughts, man, of hurting Joffrey Puryear.
Yeah.
I've had thoughts of hurting, Jana Duty. I've had thoughts of hurting Patricia Cummings.
Sure.
I mean, when you have those thoughts and those go into here, right? They can stay here, but, you know, the Bible says to take every thought captive and crucify it and make it obedient to Christ.
Yeah.
And making it obedient to Christ is how would Christ look at the situation? And he preaches the importance of forgiveness because it's never about them. It's always for you. It's so that I can let go of this ball and chain, this burden. And it's easier. It's a lot easier said than done. And I have to wake up every day and put on the full armor of God, to put on the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the shield of faith, and the sword of truth. I have to put all those things, the boots of readiness. I have to put all those things on every day in order to operate in this new life of forgiveness, because every branch that does not produce fruit will be cut off. And I don't want to stop producing fruit. That's that fear I have. And so every day it's a daily choice. And I think that's what people don't realize. So I struggle. I struggle to answer the question. I struggle. And when I show you these things, is I hope that I'm an example to fight every day. And but New York, we went up to New York, and I was out for 2 years. I got released on a bond of innocence. Right, it's really hard to get released when you're in prison on an appeal bond. But we had the hearing and we brought forward the evidence, and it was so weird because during this hearing, it was like I was gonna expect this to be a trial, right? It was a 3-day situation, like a mini trial, and I thought it was gonna be like prosecutor versus defense attorney, and judge, like overruled and this and that, like how my trial was, but it wasn't like that. It was like everybody was on the same side here, because the moment that all Keith wanted from the very beginning of this, and it only took him like 30 days to dissect my phone and to figure out that I wasn't even in the place.
In 2000.
Yeah, it should have happened in due process with the police department, right? Ultimately, Keith and everybody else who was fighting for me had to spend money to do the work that the police should have done. You have liberties in this as an American. You have a liberty of due process, right? That was never given to me. So this hearing kind of laid all that out and turned all those stones over that never were turned over. And it was so disgusting. It was so compelling that the judge said, okay, enough is enough. This is an absolute botched investigation. This should have been brought forth before he was even convicted. I need 2 weeks to look this over because it's so much. 2 weeks later, August 22nd, 2017, I get a call that I was going to get released, and
Wow.
Gaebri is like catching a quick flight from LA, right?
You were probably so excited.
Wait, this is exoneration or release?
No, this is release day.
Release, yes.
So talk about that day.
Best day ever. I mean, just getting to like hug without police officers or a table between us whenever we do our, visitation. It was amazing. It was incredible. And it finally felt like we were able to be like, we told you guys, like we finally, this is the truth. We're finally getting there. And it was our first night, like making breakfast in the morning, like just being in each other's presence again it was honestly felt like a dream. It didn't feel real. That whole
Do you know what it felt
night.
like to me? It felt like
you too.
You know what it felt like to me? It felt like if one of us later on in life, if one of us passed before each other, and we finally reunited again in heaven, That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
I felt like we were literally in
That's
heaven
exactly.
together.
That's a good.
Like I've missed you so much.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm.
It was beautiful.
So no, I get released, and of course now there's like a 2-year waiting game, because what happens here in Texas is whenever you get an appeal bond, your case gets pushed to the Criminal Court of Appeals, the highest criminal court in the state of Texas. From there's 9 judges that ultimately have to make a unanimous decision over the claims you bring forth to them. So I had 7 claims, right? 2 of them being big ones, which was the actual innocence claim, which is like a miracle to get granted relief on. And then also my due process was taken from me. So it was disruption of due process or something like that. Those were the 2 big ones that if I get those relieved, then most likely I will be exonerated. So 2 years of just a dark cloud over our life. Technically, I'm free. I get to go get a job, and I get to go in this. And I still have a criminal record. I'm literally on paper in the government system as a convicted felon released from prison, right? And so I'm technically still incarcerated. Well, 2 years goes by. She gets an opportunity.
Well, we get engaged, and we're planning a wedding, even thinking like you might go back to prison, but we're just
by faith.
Yeah, by faith. Planning a wedding in January.
Wow,
dude, by faith. January 19th, we made this day. Like we both got together and was like, I'm going to walk down this aisle free man. I will walk down this aisle free man, and there will be nothing hanging over us whenever we kiss each other and promise each other for the rest of our lives. There's nothing, right? And it's, I'm looking at it right now. It's right there. But we planned all this out by faith, and 2 years goes by, and we get engaged, and I'm like, I have a trainer job, and Gaebri's continuing to work right at Move, and then she gets this phenomenal opportunity like 2 years in to go up to New York, right? And we go up there, and she's in the she's doing a semester at the Broadway Dance Center, and That's when you got exonerated, and you text me like all these free bird emojis, and I'm sprinting over to give him a huge hug, and literally, besides becoming pregnant, that was the best day ever, because everything that we fought for was finally coming to an end, and just a huge weight was lifted off our shoulders. You know what's wild about that I was exonerated 2 months before our wedding. Yeah. January 19th, 2020, I was exonerated November 6th, 2019. Yeah. Yeah. And from there, where life just came 100 miles an hour. Happy chapter. In the happy chapter. It's we're in the expansion chapter now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's an amazing journey. You made a comment one time like you guys never thought you would be able to even have a family.
Exactly. And I planned I was like 40, however old we were gonna be. I was like,
save my eggs.
Yeah, adopt.
That's so wild to think about.
Lots of dogs.
I looked in the mirror multiple times in prison. And I would look at myself like, what am I gonna look like if I have to stay here until I'm 44? And then I also thought, I was like, where's Gaebri gonna be with me? And if she is, will we ever have a family? And all of those things, man, they just involuntarily just ponder in your head over and over again. And so Gaebri now is going to be the mother of my child. Yeah. And we're having a little girl. Yeah. And little girl. And it's so, man, it's so amazing. It's so amazing to go through this journey because, just seeing that bump every day, that's like a miracle, man. Yeah. That's a miracle because that was never promised to us. And just to start seeing that little girl kick and her she's probably kicking right now. She is. And but man, it's feed me, I'm hungry. It's a whole nother appreciation, brother.
Well, I enjoyed this. It was like way more emotional for me than I thought. But I've never really got to hear you talk about it, right? And I think Greg said from the beginning, you are so humble about it, and I think, but I just admire your strength and, you're an amazing wife and woman, and you're going to be a great mom.
Thank you. We're excited. So excited.
Yeah. I'm just, we'll just close with this. I want to just express how much I love you and how much I appreciate you for doing this. This is definitely stepping out of your comfort zone.
Biggest fear.
I had told you, I said, I know you're up for the challenge, and you've never been the type of person to back down from anything. And I know that there's so many people watching this right now, inspired by your story, inspired by our marriage. And I just want to express to people that, you know, love is just an amazing thing. Unconditional love is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And if you want a perfect example of a loyal, fearless, undaunting woman, follow my wife. She is an amazing woman, and I'm just so honored. And I have one last question for you. Okay. You can take your time answering this.
Oh, gosh.
But if you can give any message to the world right now, most important one. I mean, it doesn't need to be the most important one, but just anything that you want to share to the world to be of value, what would that be?
I mean, there's so many lessons I learned through all of this, but as cheesy as it sounds, something that like kept me going. And I don't know if I've ever heard God's voice, but I did. There's this constant voice in my head, like never give up, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I did keep doing that, but I think not until I trust God through the process, I was never at peace until I truly trust God through the process. So don't just trust the process, but it's not on my own understanding, but on God's understanding and God's plan. And that's when I was at peace with his timeline. I was at peace with everything we were going through. And I enjoyed the process instead of, I was impatient with it. So trust God in the process is my big thing I'll stand by.
I love that. Thank you so much, baby, for being on here.
Yeah.
And that's Gaebri Kelley.
Guys, if you like this episode of the Get Back Podcast, like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on, and go to justmeats.com. Use code GETBACK for $25 off your first order. See you soon.